To me, there's nothing better than sitting down to drink a coffee with that perfect milk texture. And it seems I'm not the only one who thinks this, with flat whites, lattes and cappuccinos accounting for the vast majority of orders in cafes across Australia and globally. So let's break down what it takes to get that silky milk on your home machine, and hopefully help you take your milk coffee at home from a bubbly mess to something a bit more beautiful. When it comes to that velvety milk, the two main things you need to concentrate on when you're steaming are the whirlpool and how much air you're adding in. First, we're going to discuss the amount of air. When you're steaming your milk, you can either have your steam wand on the surface of the milk or below the surface. If your steam wand tip is on the surface, it will push air into the milk, which adds the foam or froth. Whereas if your steam wand tip is below the surface, it will continue to heat up the milk, but no further air will be added. When you're steaming your milk, you want to add in some air no matter which coffee you're making, but you want to control the amount of air you're adding in so your milk doesn't get overly frothy. For velvety milk that you might use for latte art, try to get the volume of milk to increase by 1 centimeter. This will give you that silky milk texture and enough air to pour latte art without being overly airy or dry. Now, it is worth noting that some cheaper machines might have a steam wand with a froth enhancer attachment. If your machine has one of these and you can remove it, you're better off without it. Right, so now you know how to add the air, we've got to learn how to mix that air into the milk. Otherwise you'll end up with milk for a baby chino, which will make the kids happy, but not you. The second important step for beautiful silky milk is that whirlpool. The whirlpool takes the air you're adding and mixes it into the milk. Without this, you just have froth on top of heated milk, and when you go to pour it, a bunch of froth will spill out all at once. The way we get a whirlpool going is to position the steam wand and steam tip in a way that generates a whirlpool in the jug. If you imagine a cross covering the surface of your milk, you want to position the steam tip so it's halfway between the center and the edge of the jug. If you put the steam tip to the left of the center, it will create an anti-clockwise whirlpool. Whereas if you put the steam tip to the right of the center, it will create a clockwise whirlpool. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, position your steam wand tip to the... just joking. It doesn't matter which direction your whirlpool spins, but you might find it more comfortable to position the steam wand in one direction or the other, depending on whether you're left or right-handed. For example, I'm a left-hander, I hold the jug with my left hand, and I like the steam tip to the right of center. The last thing we need to take note of is the temperature of the milk when we've finished the whole process. We want to end up with milk which is about 60 to 65 degrees Celsius. Now, some people do like to drink their coffee hotter, but the sweetness of the milk starts to break down above 70 degrees Celsius. The froth can also start to separate out as the milk gets too hot. Okay, so now we have all the info, let's put it all together. Fill your jug to the bottom of the spout with milk. This volume is required for the best results, and you should have the correct size milk jug for the coffee you're making each morning. Smaller jugs like this 400ml size here are also great for domestic machines which don't have the same steam pressure as commercial machines. Once we've added our milk, purge the steam wand to remove any water buildup, and now move the steam wand out away from the machine so that you have lots of room to maneuver your jug. Next, we're going to sit the steam wand in the spout of your jug so you have a good wand position, and then sit the tip of the steam wand between the middle and the edge of the jug. You might notice that your milk jug ends up on a slight angle to achieve this position. This will help the whirlpool spin and is not something to worry about. To begin steaming, sit your steam wand tip below the surface so we don't start adding froth before we're ready. Next, turn your steam wand on and make sure you turn your steam wand on enough so that it's on full power. Any less than this and you won't get your whirlpool spinning properly. Once you've turned the steam wand on, gently move the jug down so your steam tip is now on the surface. You should also notice at this time that your whirlpool has started. If it hasn't, it's just because your machine doesn't have as much steam pressure as the machine I'm using. It's important that you keep your steam tip in the same position for these lower pressure machines and give it time for the whirlpool to build. If you start moving your steam wand tip around to different positions, the whirlpool will stop and start again in the new position, which will take even longer to get it going. Okay, so we've got a whirlpool and we've got the steam tip on the surface of the milk. At this point, you'll hear a sucking sound as you're adding in air, and you'll see the volume of the milk increasing as the frothy milk is added in. As I mentioned earlier, for that velvety, silky milk for latte art, you just want to see the volume increase by 1 centimeter. We're going to discuss the various milk drinks in the next episode of this series, but the kind of milk we're creating here will be good for a flat white or a latte. Once the volume of your milk is increased by 1 centimeter, gently move your jug back up so that the steam tip is back sitting just below the surface of the milk. Make sure you don't dunk your steam tip down lower, it will just stop the whirlpool from spinning, so just move it just back below the surface. From here, you're just keeping that whirlpool going so that all the air is mixed into the milk and turn the steam wand off when you reach your temperature of 60 to 65 degrees. To get this temperature right, you can either use a thermometer or you can gently tap the bottom of your milk jug with your fingers, and when you can no longer hold your fingers there for more than a second, you're about right. So we've finished texturing our milk and turned the steam wand off. Sit your milk jug down and wipe the steam wand with a clean cloth. Then we're going to push the steam wand back in towards the machine and purge the steam wand to remove any milk which might have got caught in the holes of the steam tip. Before you go to pour your milk into the espresso, there's one more trick to make sure your milk is looking as silky as possible. Grab your jug and give it a knock on the table. If your milk has any big bubbles, it will help to pop them, but you should still do this even if you can't see any big bubbles. Next, give your jug a vigorous swirl. This will get rid of any tiny bubbles in the milk and make your milk even silkier. At this point, you should have the same consistency as wet paint. One last thing to mention about milk texturing, the type and quality of the milk you use plays a massive part in your ability to get that silky milk texture. For cow's milk, you'll get the best results with higher fat content milk. I tend to buy the premium full cream milk because they have even higher fat content. If you're using alternative milks, buy one which is specifically designed for cafe use or use in coffee. A good suggestion if you want to use these alternate milks is to go to your favourite cafe and ask which brand they're using. Many cafes might even sell you the alternative milk they use if you ask nicely. So that covers it for this one. If you have any more questions, meet me in the comments and I'll be happy to help you out. Now this was episode 4 of the Home Barista Masterclass series, and in the next episode we'll be taking a more in-depth look at how to make all the most popular drinks on your espresso machine. Keep frothing!